Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So, this just out Guy Spier, value investor in Switzerland, is bullish on Bitcoin. Okay, I just found this out. This talk from CFA Society of Mexico was released just earlier this month. Buried in this 2.5 hour Q&A interview style session, Guy Spier talks about Bitcoin. Okay, he talks about how bullish he is on Bitcoin. So we're going to watch this clip real quick. It's a 3-minute clip, and then we're going to kind of break it down afterwards. So let's jump right into this.
Something else that I write in my letter that you'll really enjoy, or some of my Bitcoin fans, I don't have any Bitcoin friends, will really enjoy, is that I'm not saying Bitcoin doesn't end up at zero, but my assessment of the probability that Bitcoin ends up at zero is far lower today than it was 2 years ago. And, I'm not saying I don't want to make any bets on the price of Bitcoin, and I'm glad to be able to tell my investors and you that my future success does not depend on the price of Bitcoin going down, sideways, or up. But if you held a gun to my head and forced me to make a bet on where the price of Bitcoin will be and whether it'll ever be zero, I'm far more reluctant to bet that it will be zero now, which is kind of, I think, so what I'm trying to say is that I've become far more respectful of new technology, the increases in computing power. I used to sort of think that I could just ignore it. And now I realize I can't. I have to assume that somebody's working on something that's going to totally disrupt every single thing I understand today. And when we get those kinds of disruptions, it's just great for young people, It's a great advantage because all of my advantages go up in smoke. And so there's something very just and fair about that if you happen to be young and smart, And sorry, while I'm going on about this, I would urge everybody on this call, if you get the opportunity, try to travel to Silicon Valley, go specifically to University Avenue in Palo Alto. There's a cafe called the Blue Bottle Cafe. Just sit down and feel the vibe, and then walk down the street, walk past Palantir's office and various other people's offices, walk onto the campus of Stanford University, because those people, and you just have to feel it, you don't have to walk into a lecture or anything, they got the world in their sights. And I chose to move to Zurich. I'm glad I moved to Zurich. I'm grateful. I'm speaking to you from a mountain resort where I can go skiing on a daily basis. It's wonderful. But, another part of me would have liked to have moved to Silicon Valley, not because I want to become a venture capitalist, but because I would have many, many conversations with people who will help me to understand the extraordinary revolutions that are taking place in the world. Back to you, Sebastian.
April Fools, guys. Happy April 1st, 2021. So, Guy Spier's version of being bullish on Bitcoin sounds something like this. I'm not saying Bitcoin doesn't end up at zero, but my assessment of the probability that Bitcoin ends up at zero is far lower today than it was 2 years ago. Okay, that's what it sounds like for a value investor to be bullish on Bitcoin, in my experience. But what's really interesting about this segment from Guy Spier is where he talks about his respect for new technology, okay, like cryptocurrencies, blockchain. Those would be included in this. He says he used to think he could ignore those things. He realizes that he can't now, okay? And I think, this needs to be a wake-up call for a lot of value investors. Probably the most poignant part of what Guy Spier is saying here is when he says, I have to assume that somebody is working on something that's going to totally disrupt every single thing I understand today. Okay? That is a massive statement from Guy Spier. And, my sense is along those lines, right? There is massive transformation happening with technology. If we think back to when the internet was just getting started in the 1990s, right? A lot of people could feel there was going to be a massive transformation. That didn't mean it was the time to invest in internet companies, okay? Most people who invested in internet companies in the late 1990s probably lost that entire investment, okay? So I think it's similar now for a lot of these cryptocurrencies, for NFTs, all these things, all these new things we're hearing about. But I think the point that Guy Spier is trying to make is, in order to stay ahead of the curve, ahead of the investing curve, we need to understand these new technologies and the transformative impact that they're going to have on businesses, right? Because, that's what we invest in as value investors in the stock market. So I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that intrigued me is Guy Spier talking about how, he's happy that he chose to live in Switzerland, but he'd be very curious what it would be like to live in Silicon Valley and have these conversations with people who are creating the future, effectively building the future with these new technologies. And I actually live probably only half an hour from Palo Alto. The Blue Bottle that he was talking to on University Avenue, right down the street from Palantir, okay? So I may have to take an afternoon and go to Blue Bottle and, have my antennae up just to get a sense of the vibe that's happening over there. I'm a little bit insulated from that here in the East Bay, in Berkeley/Oakland. I live kind of right on the border of those. But that was interesting. That intrigued me. And then I like what he says about the benefit for young people. When we get these kinds of disruptions, it's great for young people. It's a great advantage because all of my advantages go up in smoke. Obviously, Guy Spier, someone who's been in the professional investing game for decades, has advantages, right? But with this kind of technological transformation, essentially what he's saying is, look, if I don't stay ahead of this technology curve, my advantages aren't going to be worth much. So it takes humility to say something like that in Guy Spier's shoes. That's one of the things I really appreciate about this talk is the humility that he brought into it. And then the fact that there's something just and fair about, if you happen to be young and smart, what you can do in the markets. It's really wide open for people who are willing to, learn about these new technologies and try to see 5 to 10 years ahead about, where they're going to take us. So just a really interesting segment. Thank you to SC for sending me this talk on Twitter, particularly this section where Guy Spier mentions Bitcoin. I haven't listened to the whole talk. I've probably listened to like an hour. It's a nice talk. If you have some time, you're traveling or whatever, and you want to just put it in your AirPods, recommended. Check out this talk from Guy Spier. Anything else that I want to say? I think that's about it, guys. There are going to be a lot of videos today for April Fool's Day. So consider this my warning to you guys. Sorry if I got a few of you with this Guy Spier buying Bitcoin gambit at the beginning. He is not buying Bitcoin. But again, it's a great reminder that as investors, we really need to be continuous learning machines in order to do well at this game over the long term. So I'm going to try to stay on top of it. I'll definitely be making content, about these emerging technologies. And yeah, without further ado, guys, happy April, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.